Okay. Got a few announcements to make tonight, and we're sorry we're running late, but we had some technical difficulties that we couldn't quite overcome. So, as you know, December is our election of officers, okay? And also December is our Christmas party, which we will be having here, and we plan to open the doors, come at 6 o'clock. And we kind of plan on starting to eat around 6:30. I'm hoping, unless somebody objects, anybody object to a 50-50 raffle? In other words, a bucket ticket, whatever we collect, we get half, whoever wins gets half. No problem? Cool. It's a chance for the club to make a little bit of money, and maybe somebody else too. So, well, definitely somebody else, okay? So the more that are here, if you want to run it again, we can always run another raffle during, okay? We are going to have raffles throughout the evening, and that we'll be giving away our certificates and awards to the people that have helped throughout the year. That's pretty much that. Now, during the election, our slate of officers that we have nominated, Charles, would you mind standing? Charles Lesko is nominated as president. Brad Haney is nominated as vice president. And Alex, I do not see here. Alex McCarthy, he is nominated as treasurer, and Jason Hissong, I don't see him either. He's nominated as four-year trustee. You know, you get to watch the football game, and we don't. So, okay, and there's some shuffling on around as far as officers that are already officers. Like I'll become immediate past president, and that, and Mark will be temporarily free for a while and that. And we do have one trustee who may be moving, and we'll kind of cross that bridge when we get to it. But Mark has volunteered if we can't come up with anybody or whatever the circumstances are that he would fill in later on, okay? So try to be here for the Christmas dinner and that, it's free. We'll be having ham, and then we would like if you could bring a covered dish or dessert or whatever is your favorite to bring, and we'll kind of go from there. So if you're happen to be vegetarian, you're on your own. We might have one or two little things that we come up with there, but that's on our own. So. Even there, I didn't realize that you've got to watch it. There's certain things that you can't put in a salad because of it. I'm oblivious to it. That's pretty much it on elections. I don't think I forgot anything, did I? Or if I did, it will also appear in the December Prime Focus spelled out. Does anyone have any nominations that you might like to make tonight? Okay, no one? By our bylaws, technically, this closes the nominations, okay? We do have a full slate, so technically, the nominations are closed now, okay? That's all I can say on it. I was trying to find something else I can. Let's see. One thing that's coming up, and we would like to get some volunteers. I think you all know me, or you go to where it says contact us and write the president, and it'll get to me, okay? I'll write back under my name. It won't be under president, but. We have kind of contracted with the state, and thank you for that, Mark. You didn't know about it? Okay, well, ODNR through Mark Peter, because Mark works for ODNR, Jordan Connor had contacted me, okay? And it's not like I signed our life away or anything, I hope, but we're like January, February, and March of this coming year, which technically Charles will be president, and I'll try to help you whatever I can on this. They want to have us do programs, and some of it will be done with a naturalist. I guess I like to have a naturalist at all of them, and for good reason. Things that you don't think about, like the animals, when you get into darkness, they start coming out. They get confused as to what's going on, and they start coming out. This is something you don't think about, and it's nice to know. So you can say, hi, how you doing? Okay, and Christmas dinner at Perkins. Doors basically open at 6 o'clock. Hopefully there's usually 3-4 people that'll help me out and with setting up tables and stuff like that. So that's all I've got. Brad, do you have anything? Brad is the director of JGAP. Brad Haney.
Let me steal the microphone so it gets recorded here. I'll give it back to you when we're done. I could just stand here. Yeah, I'll just stand here. First of all, Don Stevens has a very quiet voice right now, so he asked me to remind you guys that CAS has a very special relationship with Perkins Observatory, and it's something that CAS has done for a very long period of time, provided volunteers for the Friday night programs here at Perkins Observatory. I've been reminded, and you're going to correct me if I'm wrong, that there is one more in November, which is the next Friday, and then the weekend of Thanksgiving is off, and then there's 2 in December, and then you take a winter break all the way through until February, in which they start back up again. They start at 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. 8 p.m. So if you'd like to come and help out, if you've never come out, it's actually a really fun thing to do. I mean, I've got my chops coming out here and showing people Jupiter and Saturn and whatever through the telescope on the front lawn at Perkins. And right now it's perfect to show people Saturn. Saturn is perfectly placed, and that is the object that most people really get into and that kind of thing. So that's most appreciated if you can help out with that. As director of the John Glenn Astronomy Park, I'd like to advertise the 2024 astronomical calendar, which I'm selling here for the low, low price of $18 a piece, which raises funds for the John Glenn Astronomy Park. If you'd like to buy one, just let me know. If you don't have money, or I take Zelle or Venmo or whatever if you like to do that. I can take cash as well. I think I have 4 $1 bills, so I can take two 20s. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. I owe you $2. Okay. Okay, that's my dinner tomorrow. That's my dinner tomorrow. So anyway, so there's about 15 more where that came from. If we run out, or you want to buy like 20 of them, please, you can go to Etsy and just type in John Glenn Astronomy Park, and it's the first thing that comes up. That's the only thing we have for sale on our thing. Most appreciated. We at the John Glenn Astronomy Park have 2 more weeks of programs. Or 1 more week of programs, actually. Tonight is the Saturday. Next weekend is our last weekend. So if you are in that neck of the woods and you want to go down and help us out, particularly on Saturday, which looks like it's going to be clear, feel free to drive down. It's really nice. We're pretty dark. We've got telescopes. If you don't want to lug your own telescope down there, you can adopt one of the 6 or 7 telescopes that we've got lying around down there. They're all pretty good, and that would be most appreciated. As far as the third thing that I work on, the prime focus, I'm always in need of articles. I'd like to get a good idea of the sort of articles people would like to see coming up. What would people like to see in the newsletter? You know, send me that type of thing. Even if you yourself don't have one, give me ideas and I will send out assignments and that kind of thing, and people that I know that can actually do this sort of thing, and that will help out. So those are my announcements, and introducing Jim, who will be doing the program this evening, or Jimmy. Okay, okay.
Okay.
Your president of the Columbus Astronomical Society, Jim Varadi.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One more announcement. I almost forgot. We have the eclipse glasses here if anyone needs any. We have them in singles, and then for anyone that wants to sell them for the club, we do have them in packs of 5, 10, and 50, okay? And like say you buy a pack of 50, you do not have to pay for those ahead of time. Just keep them in good condition. If what you don't sell, you can turn back in, along with your money, of those you did sell, and then as long as they're in good condition, there shouldn't be any problem at all. Okay?
One thing that should be noted is a few of them are defective, so it might be a good idea to run through them and just inspect them first, because there's a few where the filter slid. I don't know if it's a lot or just a few, but there was a few that were defective, and it's not going to have effective.
I looked through most of mine, and I've told those that I gave the packs to and that to kind of watch out and at what condition they're in. But I have, outside of a couple that were smudged, that shouldn't be a problem. I haven't found anything that really had any problems. Not like what Don found. What Don found was pretty serious. So, okay. What we're going to be covering tonight is how to use a sky map or a sky chart. And this is the actual chart printed out that we will be using. There's the front, and here's the back, okay? I'll tell you where to go get them, and what's on them, and basically how to use them. That's really weird. Okay, so this is the evening map, and this map is for October of 2023. And does anyone know, have any idea what the grayed out area is? What? Maybe you can't see it. Well, there is a slightly grayed area running right through here. Okay, that's the Milky Way, okay, which you 9 times out of 10 will not see unless you're in a really dark area. Now, where you want to go to get this map, the particular one that I'm using, is skymaps.com, and you want to get it for the Northern Hemisphere, and until you get used to using it and that, I would suggest that you print both the front and the back of the map. And you'll start to see why. Okay. Once you go to the sky maps, this is what you'll see. And if you notice down in here, it says to download and print the map. Now, once you do that, it will bring up a list of maps. And you want to make sure it's for the Northern Hemisphere, which ours would be at 40 degrees north, okay? Now, they have some advertisement on here, and one of the things that they do sell that probably half my information tonight came from is a book called Skywatch. And that's by Dickinson, and you can either get it through them or you can get it through Amazon, and you can buy it through Amazon as a used book, okay? And it's an outstanding book, and it's used for a text book for teaching astronomy quite often. Now, this is the map that you will download. And once you get it, what you're going to find is up here in this upper right-hand corner, the date and time that the map is shown as. And this particular map is shown for October, and at early October at 8 p.m. and later in October at 7 p.m. because everything has moved somewhat, okay? And a strange thing, and this isn't showing up either, this was outlined in yellow, but I found that something unusual, and people have told me I don't read instructions. But the instructions for reading this map basically are printed right around here, okay? And the shaded area, which you can't see too well, kind of runs up through here, okay? And that is the Milky Way, but you need some very dark skies. I believe you get a pretty good shot of it down at J-Gap, don't you? Yeah. Just one of those things. You have to have a nice dark area. And the explanation of the symbols that are on the map and the magnitudes of the stars are printed down here. Okay. Now, also on the front of the map, on the left-hand side here, they have the events. Every month I've been sending out what's happening astronomically in the sky during a particular month. Well, this is basically the same thing. It may not match or whatever. Usually when you find these charts, there's all different kinds of things that they can put down. I guess it's what they feel most important. And it gives you an idea of what's going on throughout the month that you might want to go out and take a look at, that you weren't aware was going to happen, okay? Now, in the very center of the map, and it's a little hard to see, there is a little cross printed there. Down here, you'll notice these little humps around here. Well, that's the horizon. So these little humps and things there are supposed to be hills and that. Sometimes you'll see people, or you might see a tower or something like that. That's denoting the horizon. And what this is, now this right here is for the south. And as you are using this map, you would turn the map so that's south so you can read it, and that would be towards your chest, okay? And in this case, I'd be having to turn this way. Now, once I do that, I am looking at the horizon from point to point. This X here denotes, and you have to tell you things about what's out there this month and what you might see, and a little bit about what it is. And then this is tips for observing the night sky, such as it takes the average person about 20 minutes before your eyes really get used to being in the dark. So up until you've been out there a while, you want to kind of watch yourself and watch your step. You want to use a red light rather than a white light, and a lot of people use the maps on their phones, which is fine, except it doesn't do your night vision much good at all. So now some of them do have to where you can turn it on in red or green. That's fine, but just be aware that the white especially, or as you normally would look at the phone, is a little rough on your night vision. Here's an astronomical glossary. And one thing like here, a conjunction, what they're doing is they're explaining you have an object here and an object here. As the months go on or the time goes on, they'll draw closer. And what you're doing is that angle, as viewed from Earth, will make it look like the two planets are going to basically run into each other, and they're not, but then they will go behind. But that is actually a conjunction, okay? So there's some very good things there. Now the next thing is the easily seen. They have a list on the right-hand side here of different conditions. And they start out here with easily seen with the naked eye. And what that is a list of things that appear in the sky, and it gives the constellation they're in, and you may not be able to see it there. There's some little symbols here, and I doubt that you can tell what they are. What symbol it is, in other words, if you're looking at a nebula, a planetary nebula, or a diffuse nebula, or whatever it is that you're looking at, or maybe a galaxy, okay? One galaxy you can't, maybe down at J-gap, that you can, if you have good eyesight, you might be able to view, or at least see a smudge, and that would be Andromeda, if you have good eyes, okay? There's some other things that you can see there, and they're listing those, and that's for the current month. Then they have the next one is easily seen by binoculars. And these are objects that with anywhere from say 10, 12, 15x, you shouldn't have any problem seeing these. And there again, they give you what it is, what constellation it's in, and what the symbol is as to what you're looking at. Telescopic objects is the next one, okay? On the telescopic objects, as it states, these are things that you can see if you have a telescope, okay? And not a lot more to be said about that, so. Okay, back to the front upper right of the map. They're telling you that this map is good for the northern hemisphere, and it's good for November of 2022. And that the sky map shows the night sky looks how it looks from early November at 8 p.m. So in other words, if you go out at 8 p.m., it should be pretty much identical to what you see. Or if you go out in late November at 7 p.m. It also states that the map is good for 40 degrees, and it is good for 40 degrees of latitude for up to 15 degrees north or 15 degrees south of 40 degrees, okay? Now this, I guess you can see it. This is what we call the ecliptic, and it runs from here, a little hard to follow, up to here, going from the east to the southwest. And that does move as you go through the year. And the ecliptic is the plane that the sun travels on each day. Okay, as it goes across the sky, that is the path that it takes. It is also the path that the moon takes, and the 12 main constellations, which are known as zodiac constellations. We have 88 constellations. And out of the 88 constellations, 12 of them are zodiac constellations. And it's also the path that the planets take, and if I'm not mistaken, right down there is Mars. I believe that's what, Jupiter, and along here a little further somewhere, I'm too much of an angle, is Saturn, okay? So if you're looking, you take the map and you go out on a particular night during a certain month, and you're looking for some planets, always look along the ecliptic, okay? And that will help you find those planets in the night and tell you which ones that they are. Now on the front lower right, this is where we start getting into some things, and we'll explain this even more a little bit here. You have symbols. The little oblong here is for a galaxy. Well, I'll explain these in just a minute or two, okay? So each one represents an object in the sky, or most objects in the sky, let's put it that way. Then you have star magnitudes. So you have a 0, and then you have a -1, and it does go more this way, and you have a 1, 2, 3, 4. How far out this goes now, I don't know, but I know it goes out to at least about 35, 38, maybe a little bit further, okay? And those are the brightness of the stars. The brightest star that we can see from Earth is Sirius, okay? And that is a -1. Now, I'm going to need to turn on a light here because this is, I can't see it. I don't know if you guys can see it at all yourself. This is a, basically they're using a thermometer. And right there is 0. Okay, so what they're saying as you go this way, they consider as you go up as being negative. Okay, and the first one, a -1 is Sirius. And that is the brightest star that can be seen from Earth. Next up would be Venus, which is the brightest planet. And Venus, when you do look at it, it is quite bright. Okay, and the next one up from that, this is hard to read backwards. 9. Okay, that's the crescent moon, which is a -9. And the next brightest would be a -9, or I'm sorry, a -13, which is a full moon. Okay, and the next one would be a 20, which is the brightest fireball meteors that they've seen and measured. And of course, the very next one is our sun, which is a -27, so a little bright, okay? And then as you go down the other way, a +6 is the limit of the naked eye, okay? A +9 is the limit of binoculars. Now, they don't say at what X, but that's basically what they're calling the limit. A +13 is pretty much the limit for an 8-inch telescope, okay? And a +18 is the visual limit for a large telescope, and 23 would be the limit for a photo telescope, and 27 would be with a CCD limit telescope, and 30 is the limit of the Hubble telescope, okay? And then after that, the book was dated and it didn't mention anything about Webb telescope and that, okay? But the main thing is that you get the idea. If you look at something that's marked as a -1 or a -3, you're looking at something very bright. If you're looking at something a +1 or a +2 or whatever, you're looking at something that's relatively dim, okay? Okay, now here's where, can everybody see this okay out there? Don't try to read it, don't. You're not really supposed to do this, but I do it so that later on people can go through and read it themselves and that. But a constellation is a group of stars which forms an outline or pattern. It can represent animals, mythological persons, creatures, or any inanimate object. The word constellation is derived from Latin, which means a set of stars. We officially recognize 88 constellations, as I had mentioned before, in the sky, and there are set areas that have been defined which form their borders. And now this is where stellarium is real good. You can turn on stellarium and look at the constellations. You can look at either what their shape is, what they're supposed to represent, or you can look and it will show you what the constellation boundaries are. And an asterism is similar to a constellation, but it's popularly known pattern or group of stars which visually are obvious as the lines used to mentally connect them. And what they're saying, like the Big Dipper. A lot of people think that the Big Dipper is a constellation. It is not a constellation. It is an asterism. And the Big Dipper is part of Ursa Major, the Big Bear, okay? What makes the Big Dipper an asterism is the fact that it's actually part of a larger constellation, Ursa Major. Though most of the popular recognized asterisms are just part of a constellation, they can span multiple constellations. The most famous of those is the Summer Triangle, which we looked at here for several months, okay? Which is composed of Vega in the constellation Lyra, Deneb in the constellation Cygnus, and Altar in the constellation Aquila. Although another type of asterism is basically the whole constellation almost. An example of that is the Little Dipper. The Little Dipper is almost the whole constellation of Ursa Minor, okay? Now, I mentioned there's 12 constellations of the zodiac. And those are shown right here, and they are Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpius, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. And all of those can be viewed from the northern or the southern hemisphere. Okay? And as I said before, they can all be found along the ecliptic. As you go through the year, you follow it, and you will see all of these popping up right along there. Now, there is a 13th constellation, Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer. And if you take a look at this constellation, and then you take a look at what they got out of it, I have no idea. I can't connect to that. I don't know what they drank while they were out there, but they had some pretty wild imaginations. Okay, so there is an extra constellation, and I won't go. I have the information if somebody wants to read it. But basically, what they did when the Babylonians came up with the zodiac constellations and named that those 12 were there, they didn't know about this constellation apparently. Then later on, it was found or noticed, and it didn't fit neatly into their little groupings the way that they did it, so they just left it out. So that's it in a nutshell. That's basically what they did. One of the things that can help you out when you're trying to find your way in the night sky is your own hands, okay? Your little finger held up is approximately 1 degree. The sun and the moon, if held up at arm's length, the sun and the moon are approximately 1/2 degree, okay? If you put your finger up, it usually covers it, okay, with no problem. 5 degrees is the first 3 fingers, like the Boy Scout salute. 10 degrees is across the fist from the outside of the knuckle all the way across. And the index finger and the little finger or pinky up across there is 15 degrees. Now, if you spread your hand fully out, that's supposed to be 25 degrees. Now, the big problem with this is everybody's hands are not the same size, okay? But if you take a look there on the end, you have the Big Dipper. And what they're showing you is from the tip of the handle to the tip of the ladle is 25 degrees. Now, what you can do if you don't know what size your hand is going to be or how many degrees it's going to be, just take it out and go out and look and see what you have to do to adjust or whatever. And that, but like I say, everybody's going to be a little bit different. I know myself, from the tip of my little finger to the tip of my thumb is almost 9.5 inches. That's very large. That. So you just have to experiment around. And what can help you with doing that, again, is our friend the Big Dipper. As we just said, from the tip of the handle to the tip of the ladle is 25 degrees. From the third star of the handle to the tip of the ladle is 15 degrees. And across the top of the ladle is 10 degrees. And up the outside of the ladle is 5 degrees. And from the outside tip of the ladle to Polaris, the North Star, is 28 degrees. So by using these degrees, you can start measuring your way around in the sky and figuring out and helping yourself to find out what's out there and do what they call star hopping. Now, as you're looking at the Big Dipper, what I'm showing there is basically 1 year, 12 months. So we'll start up here in the spring. The Big Dipper is upside down. Okay, it's dumping all the water out of it. And the handle is basically pointing east. Okay? Then as you go on to summer, now the handle is up in the air, basically facing north as you're looking, and the ladle is tipped down. And as you get to autumn, the ladle is now upright, holding water, or whatever it's holding, and just still going around. Wintertime, now the handle is down, and the ladle is up here. But that whole time, if you follow these two outside stars, points to Polaris, points to Polaris, points to Polaris, a little bit off, you have to curve it a little bit, but still points to Polaris, and the same thing down here, points to Polaris. So what they're showing is even though it's circling around, it still keeps pointing to Polaris. And Polaris moves very little. It's almost not worth worrying about. So if you ever go out and you don't have your telescope aligned with your finder scope, like a lot of guys take them off every time, and you got out too late, you can't see a telephone pole, there's nothing around and that, you can use Polaris to, at least for the evening, get yourself through and have no problems whatsoever. Just remember, when you align your telescope up like that, you always want to align the finder scope to the telescope, never the telescope to the finder scope. So what you would do is, looking over the top of your scope and down through the side of your scope, you would line up Polaris and get it in your eyepiece. Once you have it in your eyepiece, turn the eyepiece and detune it, so that you start getting the donut. So you get that large circle. That large circle is a lot easier to get centered up in that eyepiece than just a little tiny shiny star, okay? Once you've got that in the center to where you're pretty happy, go over and look at your eyepiece, your finder scope, and if you find that it's off, now adjust it to where it's in the center too. Go back, make sure you haven't moved your scope, and go back and forth a couple times. And if you want to get really more accurate, then use, when you go back and you're happy, or somewhat happy, use a higher powered one with a lower number and center it up a little bit more, okay? But anytime you're trying to line your finder scope up, always use a medium powered eyepiece. Okay, and now what they're showing here is the Big Dipper being the key to the night sky. Now, as we showed before, here's across the outside of the ladle, points right to Polaris. If you take the third star of the handle and go to Polaris and keep going, it will take you to Cassiopeia. Okay, if you go across the lower part of the ladle, go one way, it'll take you to Regulus, go the other way, it will lead you in the area. If you notice that's curved and same thing there, it will take you in the area of Vega and Deneb. Okay, and there's others here that you can do, and it's just a matter of doing it and getting used to it will help you find your way around considerably. And some of the same things can be done with Orion. And what they're doing is pointing across the belt of Orion, goes to Aldebaran, and the other way you go to Sirius. You have Rigel down here, you have Betelgeuse up here, which will lead you on up here to Castor and Pollux in Gemini. And Procyon would be across this line right here. Now, what this states is Orion, if you notice, you can't use it during certain months. From May through October, it's just not there, okay? And that's kind of the truth of a lot of this stuff. If you go looking for something that's not there, you can use all the charts and maps that you got, and you're not going to find it because it's just not there, okay? So you do have to get used to what's available at what particular. It can, or I'm sorry, during these months and these months down here, which is starting basically now, you can use Orion and it can be very helpful to you to get around the sky, okay? Now we'll get to, it's kind of off the screen over there, but we'll get to some of the symbols. This is just a little open oblong, okay? And that's the symbol for a galaxy. And what you're looking at here is an example of the galaxy Andromeda M31. Now, a word of warning, when you go out with your telescope, you're not going to see this. What you're going to see is probably closer to something like this, okay? You're not going to see the colors and that. What you will usually see, depending on your scope, is just like an oblong blob, okay? To see some of the stuff, your eyes are just not fast enough, and what you need to do then is when you start with snapping the pictures, and you start getting into the astrophotography end of the whole thing, okay? Now, as you go up and you have a really large telescope, you will see more structure, but you're still not going to see it like that. Okay, and a double star. And there are two types of double stars. There's an optical double and a binary double. Okay, an example of an optical double is Mizar and Alcor. Mizar is the second star of the handle of the Big Dipper. Now this is a great one that we use a lot out during the programs and that. People don't realize that when you look at the second star of the Big Dipper, it's a double star, an optical double, okay? And one time it was used, I'm told, it was used back in Roman times that if you were able to resolve that and see that there was two stars there through their tests that they did, then that qualified you to be an archer. So, and here is basically what you would see, Mizar and Alcor, what you would see as you look. There is Mizar, there is Alcor, and actually Mizar is not only a double in itself, it's a quadruple in there. So once you start looking in a telescope and you start going up in power, you find out that, hey, there's more there than just this. Okay, but that's what you would look at if you were to just look at Mizar or Alcor, oh, say magnified 50 to 75 times. Okay, you would basically see that. Okay. Another type of double star is Sirius. You have Sirius A and Sirius B. And they are a binary double, okay? And by binary, what they mean is there is a gravitational field there, and one star is orbiting the other star, or it could be 2 or 3 stars, okay? But there is Sirius, and it's a seriously large star, but compared with some of the stars, it is tiny. But it is 1.7 times the size or the mass of our sun. And here is its little buddy over here that orbits it, okay? And this is the symbol over here, which is basically a black dot with a line coming through it, okay? Or out one half of it. What you'll find, be careful, anytime you look at a sky chart, and I tried to look this up and I really didn't get too far. I thought, well, there was a universal set of symbols for the objects, and there may be, I just haven't been able to find it so far that defines, you know, well, this is the whole set. But it seems like every time I pick up a sky chart, especially the ones like what I send out monthly and what we're using here, you look and it doesn't match, they don't match each other sometimes. So always look, it's just like a road map. When you pick up a road map, if you want to see what kind of road you're going to be driving on or whatever, you go to your charts that you have there and it says this is an interstate or this is a side road or whatever, or a town, county road. The same thing with what we're doing here. Now this is a problem. This is a variable star. I tried to enlarge this stuff so you could see it. Well, what I found out when I enlarged it, it completely changed what it was. This really should be a grade circle with a plus mark in it, a black plus mark in it. And that's what it is in the smaller one, but like I say, as you blow this up to show it, it looks like a bullseye now. But there is an X in there. Okay, on the variable stars, you have 2 types there too. You have an intrinsic variable, which an intrinsic variable, it changes its brightness by either changing its size or shape. And this here happens to be Betelgeuse. And these pictures were taken in January of 2019 and December of 2019. You can see the difference there in the luminosity of the two. Okay. And then the other variable that you have is an extrinsic variable. And that, what you're looking at usually is an object or a star that has a companion. And what it is doing is crossing in front of it. And just like walking in front of a flashlight or something, it starts to dim for a period of time and then comes back to bright again. And that's as the object goes past the front of it. Okay? And like I say, this is Betelgeuse being shown here. And that is your variable stars. Now you have a diffuse nebula, which is just a small square. And one of the most common ones is the Orion Nebula. Now, the best that I can describe it, you have here dust, particles and dust and everything else, and that's being lit up or by reflections off of the other stars, which is diffusing the light, okay? So it causes like a glowing effect is what it is, more than just looking at something as a mass, okay? And that would be your diffuse nebula. The next thing is an open star cluster. And that, just an open circle with a little cluster of dots to make up the circle, rather than being a solid line. And what you're looking at here is the Pleiades, M45. Okay, and there again, the Pleiades also is another one that a lot of people think is a constellation. It is not a constellation. It is actually an asterism, because it's part of Taurus the bull. I believe it's part of the shoulder somehow. Okay? And here you have Orion's belt, and this is Orion. And then if you follow the arrow up from the top of it, from his arm to the top of his bow, it'll take you to Aldebaran. And if you go a little further, over to the Pleiades. And this is a globular star cluster, which is a circle with a plus sign in the middle of it. And it's exactly as what the name says. It's a glob of stars. And this is the Great Hercules cluster, and there's somewhere between 300 and 400,000, what was it, a million, isn't it? No, yeah, 500,000. 300 to 400,000 and possibly more stars in this cluster, okay? And here it is here. If you go to the constellation Hercules, you have his shoulder here, and he's holding his arm up, and he's got his club in his hand. And over here, he's holding a dead lion, or he's dying, whatever, and he's beating, I guess, beating him with the club. And right here on that edge, about a third of the way down, you'll see M13. And also, if you follow Hercules' leg down to his knee, he needs some serious work there on his knee, but it points to Vega, okay? Now this, I don't know how well you can see this, but you might want to watch up in here or watch generally to show you how the sky goes throughout 12 months and then back to January. So if we go along, notice the Big Dipper starting to turn in the direction things are moving. Here you go again. And in April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. And if you notice in November, one of the legs of Ursa Major is actually off of the chart. December, more is off, part of the handle's off. And then we're back to January, okay? And that concludes my presentation for the evening. Aren't you glad of that? Any questions or? No news is good news, I guess. They didn't wake up yet.
I think you want to combine that with a planisphere.
Pardon?
Combining that with a planisphere is very helpful.
Yeah, there are several tools you can use. This is just what you call a chart, which is there. And you can get, as he says, a planisphere. And a planisphere really is basically the same thing, but it's drawn around the whole thing, and you can line your times up, like you might say, whatever today, you would go out for November 11th at 9 o'clock. You would line it up, and that will basically show you what's out there for that particular time for you to look at, okay? A little bit more difficult to use, but and they do have a time period. They're only good for so many years. What that period is, I don't know offhand, but it's quite a period of time. So, and they're not expensive to buy. They're maybe anywhere from $8 to $15, maybe $20. Although Isaac has some very elaborate ones that are about that big. So, anybody else? Any? Okay. Oh, okay. Mark Peter has brought in some books with charts over here. If you would want to take a look through any of them and see what other charts are out there. There are a lot of different charts out there. And you can get charts for just a specific small area of the sky. And that, just depending on what you want to look at and how intricate.
You'll see those symbols are pretty standard across the board. Sometimes they change a little bit, but most of the time the ones that are in that chart that you showed are the ones that they usually use.
Yeah, and that's why I like this one, but I like the one I send out monthly. I looked at it for double star, and it goes all the way, the line goes all the way through it. And you go, wait a minute, you know, and that can get a little confusing. But what I...
It's always a little oval.
Yeah, exactly. But what I did find is and I told Mark this, I believe, I had searched while I was starting to make this, and that I kept putting in the searches for a universal list of the symbols for the charts. I couldn't come up with anything. So then as I was finishing this up last night, I happened to put in, I think it was, show me something, a symbol for a double star. And it came up with this whole list of these galaxies and that and all this stuff. And the size of what was drawn was to a scale that told you how many light years it might be across. And it was really interesting, but it was too late. I wasn't going to go back and change everything I'd already done. So, you know.
The orientation of the line on the double star sometimes will tell you where the companion is relative to the primary.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of it's just going out and using it and expanding your own knowledge. I can stand up here all day, or anybody can do it, and you're going to always miss parts that people are going to wonder about. So it's mostly best to just go out and do it. Yeah,
You know, some of the best ways to find these objects, I don't know if you can even get them anymore or not, but they call them astro cards. They're like little postcards of the objects, and you could stick that card, you know, right up on the eyepiece of your telescope and follow right to whatever you want to look at. I don't know if you can even get them or not, but
I've heard of them. I haven't, and I've seen a couple, but I don't know if they're available or not. I'll try to check on that and find out what I can find. I don't know. No idea. That's it. And there is pop and refreshments out there, so.
I would ask, be careful not to take, well, still drinks. I've got,
Was it okay?
got the interstellar.
I think it's always good to get, I think what it was